This is an article that came from The Guardian. It was written by Stephanie Kirschgesner, and I'm hoping I didn't butcher her last name, but there's a really good chance I did. And it's about a group called the People of Praise that Amy Coathanger Barrett or Amy Comey Barrett used to belong to. And she had lived with a couple of the Ranigans, Kevin and his wife Dorothy Ranigan, when she was a law student going to Notre Dame. Now, the Ranigans have had many accusations leveled against them about their behavior. In '93, Cynthia Karnick tried to get a court order to not allow her husband to bring their children to the household where Amy Barrett was living at. There is nothing that ties Barrett to the house at this time. She may or may not have been there, but Miss Karnick mentions a lot of inappropriate incidents involving the Ranigans and the Ranigan children, and she wasn't comfortable with her children being there, so she got a court order against them. There's a lot of really weird sexually explicit behavior, but um, it doesn't seem like they were accused of molesting their children, but there was, like I said, there was like accusations of them dry humping in front of the children. There was an accusation that the father was still showering with his 10 and 11-year-old daughters, which as a dad I find really creepy. But the piece kind of seems like it seems like a hit piece to me, trying to connect Amy Comey Barrett to this group, which she was connected to it, but I don't think she had any say in the workings of this group. And it's sort of like this piece is kind of like trying to draw that line between them, and I'm not so sure that was such a great thing to do. It kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth. So, Richard, what do you think? You want to take it from there?
Yeah, I got the same impression about it being a hit piece. That's the first thing I noticed about it. Amy Coney Barrett is not the greatest of people when it comes to political views. I think is from my perspective, I think is a reasonable thing to say, but to kind of tie her to this organization. And she has got ties to this organization, but to kind of her name's mentioned over and over and over again in this article, and she really has nothing to do with these allegations. And at the moment, they are just allegations. They're as terrible as they are. There's been nothing proven in court about them. There's it's ongoing. Both the family and the organization deny that these things occurred. There was if I remember rightly, there was an agreement settled regarding something to do with the allegations from the article. Tells us from the time when they first came up, but there's no details regarding that, and it's all very vague. And
oh, sorry, Richard. I think that they only mention her because they want to make sure that, in case that they are taking to justice, you don't have this person, Amy Coney Barrett, who is a member of the of this church, judging them because there could be some fishy things going on. At least I felt that was the idea, because as you mentioned, there is no indication that she lived in the house when the thing with the children happened, or that she even witnessed anything. It's just mentioning, oh, we have this terrible group that tell women how to dress, what to do, how to spend their money, who to date. And this person who is a Supreme Court justice, she's part of that. She has these extremist ideas. Actually, the article mentions that she was in charge of a school, and that school started banning children that had same-sex parents, and gay or lesbian teachers were not allowed in there when and it started with her. So I guess I don't want to defend anything, but I guess the idea was that, like, this person has these extreme point of views. They come from these awful institution that we know is has a fishy background. So be careful. I don't know, Scott. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I'm glad the other panelists agree with me with my assessment that this reeks of clickbaitiness, right? It seems like it's a setup, and I think that's encouraging to me. I think that if we want to be real skeptics, we need to make sure that we apply our skepticism to headlines and ideas that coincide with our beliefs. And so I might be naturally opposed to things related to Amy Coney Barrett and to this religious organization, but we need to make sure that we don't rush to judgment as well. And so I think that we really had two stories here. They spent part of the story talking about this family and this religious organization, these people of praise, and there's some goings on there. There's some questionable activity going on, as Richard pointed out, that they really didn't mention anything about any criminal charges, and they were kind of vague about what happened. They mentioned that there was some kind of settlement between the organization and the alleged victims. To me, that sounds like, okay, they had a settlement, and then there was some kind of clause in the settlement that they don't, some kind of gag rule or something like that. So that was one of the stories, and there's a lot of impact with stories like that. You see people not only taking advantage of children, which is bad enough, and taking advantage of vulnerable adults. They talked about how the organization could be manipulative of some of their members, dictating who they could even date, and they would have to hand over their paychecks, and they can dictate how they spend their paychecks, and so yes, we have a cult-like organization that, if not, I don't know where we would draw the line to call it a cult, but we have this organization that are doing these things, and then they slap Amy Coney Barrett's picture on the front of it and put a big headlines that's supposedly connecting her to the organization. She wasn't. In fact, they specifically said in the article that they were not able to find anything connecting Amy Coney Barrett to any of the alleged misbehaviors or inappropriate behaviors, but she was connected to the organization, and the impression that I got, and I was taking it with a kind of a rather large grain of salt, but the impression that I got is they were saying, look, there's this organization that doesn't treat people, that doesn't respect people's rights. They didn't say that they specifically did this manipulation on only women, although in the article, the only victims that they mentioned in this respect were women, and so I don't know if they treated men the same way. I don't know if the organization was unusually restrictive on women, but I think these are such important things to talk about. How these are. When people get involved in religious organizations like this, they trust the leaders and they trust the organization itself to take care of them and to at least be respectful of them. And so it's a betrayal of another order of not just these are people that bill themselves as people that can be trusted, people that have have their ear to God, right? They're listening to what the Almighty Creator is telling us about the world. And so when there are these failures, it just hurts all the more. Now, is Amy Coney Barrett tied to the wrongdoings? No, or at least they didn't say anything about it in the story. But does it matter that she came from this organization? She lived with this couple, with the Ranigans, while she was in law school at Notre Dame. And, you can't help but wonder, is she going to allow those unusual views or those aggressive or those abusive views to affect the way her performance as a justice? We do expect a certain amount of independence when we're looking for the Supreme Court justices. And so I think that's important. That's important to look at and to watch and to talk about. Certainly there's been lots of hints that maybe she was going to lean a certain way, or is she going to obey her husband like the Bible says she's supposed to, even though she was the one who was appointed to the Supreme Court. We'll have time will tell, right? But we need to make sure that we don't overstep our bounds. And I think the topics are important. I think the way that they were presented in this article in The Guardian did a disservice to the importance of the content. And I think it makes a kind of a dog and pony show, or is that did I get that right? Some kind of sideshow, right? Of, hey, look what's going on over in the US. And it just, I don't know, it ticked off the skeptic sense in me. And so, go ahead, Richard. Sorry.
Yeah, me too. And the thing is, regarding the kind of looking back at the allegations, this religious organization, have actually put an independent study together to try and find out what has happened. And this is another thing that set the kind of spidey sense off in me, because they do seem to want to get to the bottom of these allegations as well. The problem is that, and it's been done time and time again, they've got a legal firm, which Quinn, Emanuel, Hercart, and Sullivan, to conduct an independent investigation into the article calls them decade-old claims of sexual abuse against minors. But this is a clincher. It says a written report of its findings would not be released to alleged victims or the public. And this is the problem with all of these groups, all these religious groups who have the spotlight shined on them. They should do it transparently. They'd have got so much more respect if they'd have put that forward and said, yes, we will investigate. We've got this. And this investigation has been concluded now, but we don't know the results of it. Why not be transparent? You're going to look a lot better in the public eye if you've got transparent, regardless of the outcome, if you've got transparency in those investigations. Say we're willing to investigate ourselves. I applaud them for that. That's a good thing to do. But make it public, make it transparent all the way out. And even the victims don't get to see the result of this investigation, and that's wrong. Kelly,
it made me wonder if they were really serious about investigating it, or if they just wanted to appear as if they were serious about investigating it.
Exactly. Yep.
Thank you, Kelly. You got my point. I was going to ask, am I too optimistic? Are you too optimistic? Because for me, they are just they are just washing their appearance. No, they are just doing control damage, and that's what they are doing. They are cleaning their image. That is what I wanted to say.
Yeah,
but
having an independent investigation, you can be independent in your research and your investigation, but sharing the results is part of being independent. If the people of praise hired the lawyers, which is fine, that doesn't mean it's going to be biased. They could hire, a legal firm can in fact be independent even when they are hired by one of the parties that's heavily invested in the results. But if the people of praise have control over who sees the results, that doesn't really pass the sniff test for me as far as being independent. It just fell a little short, I think.
What Richard said about gaining, I don't know, doing that depending on the results. For me, and once again, I might be a little biased against these quotes, but when you do something like that, your own investigation, and the results are secret, for me, it's just like, yeah, we're guilty and we have to cover this. We have to make something to pretend we are doing something against the allegations. But for example, I want to quote one of the victims who she was sexually abused. And when she spoke about her case, she was told that even though some individuals had been interviewed about the allegations, they didn't recall the details. And it had been difficult to get information. So this is kind of weird, guys. All this information disappearing and the results are nowhere to be found. For me, that's quite weird. Once again, maybe I'm too pessimistic.
Yeah, regardless of what they've done or not done, this group seems to, if you have a look at its kind of teachings and what it expects of its followers, they seem to be kind of usual run-of-the-mill, stuck in the past kind of religious organization that's about as I originally wrote in my notes that they were stuck in this Bronze Age. But I think being stuck in the 70s is actually being less liberal than being stuck in the Bronze Age, because there were some quite what would consider liberal attitudes during the Bronze Age. So yeah, I don't know. It makes for a good conservative country song. Some of the rules and things they have done it.
Also, before I ask Kelly about his opinion, I think it was Scott who said that there was no information about the men. I do remember that only men can be governors and only men can preach and all of that, and women have to be extremely submissive. That was kind of like the part that got me. It was like, what the heck, as Richard said, what age are they living in? So yeah, there was a little bit of information about that in there. Sorry, Kelly?
Yeah, there does seem to be a degree of that here too, as Scott mentioned, that some of the women were claiming that the Ranigans were taking their paycheck, they were overseeing who they could date, who they couldn't date, and if Amy Coney Barrett was living here, well, we know she was living there, and she was involved in any of this activity, it seems to me that she was the young woman that was there, right? And this might have been happening to her too as well. And then it occurred to me that, like, she might not even consider that abuse if that's what she was indoctrinated to believe, that the man had complete authority over the household and she was subservient to him. And if she does think that, I'm really not comfortable with her being on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I mean that
really was my biggest takeaway from it.
Yeah, that's really, well, that you can see that's why they chose that for the headline, right? That was the big getcha. That was the big hook right there. And there's a justice on the Supreme Court that has that came from this misogynistic organization, and they at the very least they have established that they do have misogynistic ideals or conceptions that they put forward and that they're proud of. They think that is what the big man, the big patriarch in the sky, handed down to us. And so that's really I think this was good to like kind of keep things on the radar. And I don't know, there might be some people that are swayed by the aggressiveness of the headline and of the implications that are made. It's like it's like the old Fox News strategy, right? You don't want to say that somebody did X. You say, did somebody do X? And then they let the viewer kind of take that where they will. And yeah. So anyway,
some people would say,
yeah.
that's Fox News strategy. Some people would say that.
Yeah, I think wearing skeptic hats and not witch hunter hats is the right way to go. And Scott said it perfectly at the beginning when he said, even if it's things that we agree with, and it's attitudes that or articles that seem to be along the usual lines of stuff that we're agreeing with, you've got to put your skeptic hat on and not just accept it just because it seems to be in your favor. That's exactly when you fall into the kind of Fox News way of thinking.
Wow,
yeah, exactly. I agree.
I hadn't seen it from that point of view, and yeah, you're totally right. As I said, when I read it and I read the name of this judge, I'm immediately alarmed because, as Scott said, okay, this person comes from this specific background, so is this going to affect her job or her development, how she does things? My biggest fear, and this is going to be related to the third topic, so I don't want to spoil much about that, but when this specific organization has to answer to justice, is she going to be there? Is she going to be moving, her contacts, or am I being just paranoid? Am I falling in the trap of this article that is trying to make me think about that? I don't know, but as Richard said, we have to always be skeptical, even in things that kind of agree with us, because I have a history of not believing much in the church, and most of the time believing the victims rather than the guy saying, no, we didn't hurt this person. But yeah, you're totally right, guys. We have to be skeptical even with things that we may agree at from the beginning.
I would say, especially with things that we agree on. You're the easiest person to fool is yourself, and so so in that regard, I thought that this article did have some value in it as almost like a practice, a skeptic practice, and so there was tidbits of real information of concern in there, but the presentation, the way that it was presented to us, was a totally different story.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's shocking. And I think we need to remember that regardless of all of this, victims of child abuse should be the ones who are protected at all costs and in all cases. And this article and articles like this from both sides or all sides of the spectrum, I think they belittle that, and kind of trying to make a bigger thing out of somebody's connection to the religious group than concentrating on the victims themselves if this indeed did occur. And
right.
If it is found that is the case, that there was child abuse, then get the spotlight shined directly on this organization, and then maybe question Amy Coney Barrett's connection to them and whether she was present, and like dig deeper and get that spotlight shined on it. But until that's done, the victims are the most important people, and the people who feel that regardless of whether it's been found in a court of law, the people who feel they've been abused, this organization clearly abuses people, manipulates them, and kind of indoctrinates them, all the usual good stuff we get really with religious organizations. But let's listen to their voices and not kind of shift the focus onto something which really has nothing to do with the story.
Oh yeah, and especially on the descriptions of people. I don't want to go very graphic, so I would advise people be guys, don't be like me, be more skeptic, and please pay attention to the descriptions of the things that they were doing with the children, because those things are very creepy. And I want you to remember about that when we go with topic number 3. And now I would like to move on